Hello, so for Year 7, Lesson 3, The Witch's Spell, you need to read the extract that is attached to the task. You need to look at what words the witches use and what does it tell us about the spell. And we are going to annotate some ideas now. We're then going to think about, should Macbeth trust the witches? And I'm going to show you a little way that you can explore those ideas. Okay, the first thing we're going to look at is the glossary down here, because that tells us what some of these words mean. I'm not going to explain it whilst talking you through, so you need to look down here if you need to remind yourself. Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. So here we're wishing more work and more trouble, more menacing. So this, along with fire burn and cauldron bubble, tells us that the witches want Macbeth to have to work, that this is obviously not going to be a enjoyable or positive spell for him. So it is a negative spell with these nouns such as fire and cauldron, and the fact that it repeats double could show that it's a strong or powerful spell. Fillet of fenny snake in the cauldron, boil and bake. Eye of newt and toe of frog, wool of bat and tongue of dog, adder's fork and blind worm's sting, lizard's leg and owlet's wing. Now here we've got lots and lots of different body parts. So there's lots of different things going into this. So this could show that the witches are experienced, that it's a very complex or complicated spell. There's lots of things going into it. And they say for a charm of powerful trouble. Now, because trouble is a noun, this is going to be an adjective. So this adjective tells us that it is a strong, even aggressive somewhat spell, like a hell, broth, boil and bubble. Now, because it's got that word like, we know that that is going to be a simile, and it compares it to hell. So that tells us again that it's going to be negative. Does this mean it will be a good spell or good fortune, really, for Macbeth? So thinking about that question, should he trust the witches? If someone's doing something and comparing it to hell, I'd probably be a little bit cautious. And again, double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. So these two things are repeated. So it's a very nice, concise, so kind of straightforward spell that uses a lot of the same language, and we've got a lot of rhyme in here as well, with trouble and bubble, snake, bake, frog, dog, sting, wing, trouble, bubble. So it's very witch-like, very stereotypical there. Okay, so now we're going to look at these questions from Show My Homework, which are: what words do the witches use? What does it tell us about the spell? That's the first one. And do you think Macbeth should trust them? And I'm going to tell you how we've already found the quotations that you need to use from the work that we did up here. Okay, so what words do the witches use? That's quite obvious. What I would pick out are the different body parts that they use, and especially the animals as well. Bats, adder as a snake, lizard, owl, owlet, baby owl. So there's a collection of animal parts here, collection of animal parts. What I would maybe think about that is it's showing that they're evil, that they are using animals essentially for another purpose. They might have killed them, we don't know that. They are rhyming as well, so they are working together in a witch-like way. We expect witches to do spells that rhyme. They also use words, as we've said, like toil, work, trouble, and like hell broth. So there I'd be thinking about that simile that we looked at, the hell one, and things like double and trouble. So we already looked at that. And what does it tell us about the spell? Well, you've already made those ideas. You've already come up with those ideas with what we looked at earlier. So I've given you all the kind of support there and ideas that you would need to answer that. It just asks you to annotate your ideas on the extract. So what I would maybe go on to do is think, okay, well, what does that tell us about the spell? What does this tell us about the witches? The second one, for do you think Macbeth should trust them, is what I always tend to do is to try and split my ideas into a table. So really quickly, I'm just going to do a little table with one side being yes and one side being no. I'm just going to put those in the middle because it's going to annoy me. So a reason to trust the witches, potentially, could be that they clearly know what they are doing. They know what to put in to the cauldron. They know that it's going to be a powerful spell. And from Macbeth's point of view, maybe it could work out for him. So yes, it's a powerful spell. Yes, they know what they're doing. They are experienced witches, and it's going to include lots and lots of different elements, and especially that word charm sounds better than something like a curse. So I'd be saying yes, the word charm suggests it could be positive. Now, however, the most obvious thing that we've noticed is that this is really negative and quite dangerous sounding. So there's lots of ideas for no here. So I'm just going to put in a few things, just like the negative words that we identified. Also the mentioning of hell. And obviously they are witches, not kind of assumed to be good, essentially. So those would be some reasons. And what you need to do for this part, where it says use a quotation to support why you think this is just using these little things that we've highlighted and what we looked at earlier when we did this bit. So a way that you would phrase that, for example, would be no, Macbeth should not trust the witches because they say that the fire will burn. And what I'm going to do here is a nice little thing where I'm just going to put that word in with my sentence, the fire will burn, instead of saying this quotation is shown or this is supported by the quote. I'm just going to put that little word here, the fire will burn. This tells us that it could be dangerous, as we know fire is, or it could hurt Macbeth. Now these ideas, they aren't said when it says burn. It doesn't say burn and it is going to be dangerous. It's just inferred. It means it's reading between the lines. We have to think about what that could mean. So don't worry if that's a little bit difficult. Inferring things is not always straightforward. Also things like sting you could talk about. Obviously the idea of like a hell broth. So there's lots of ideas, and what you want to do is just phrase it as yes or no, Macbeth should or should not trust the witches because. So there's lots of little ideas there that I hope have supported you. I'm just going to hover over these last few things here, just so if you wanted to pause the video and copy them down. And then I'm going to go here in case you wanted to pause here and copy down what is there. Unfortunately, I can't send you this document So make sure you look back through the video and pause it if you need. And obviously you can always email your English teacher or myself if you need help. But well done, and I'll speak to you next time.